Yachchapi sarvabhutanam Bijam tad aham Arjuna Mattat asti vinayatsyan Maya bhutam characharam. So, Yachapi sarvabhutanam Ejam tat aham arjam Na tadasti vinayatsyan Maya bhutam characharam.
Yachapi sarvabhutanam Bijam tadaham Arjuna Na tadasti vinayatsa Maya bhutam characharam Yachapi sarvabhutanam Bijam tad aham Arjuna Mattat asti vinayatsa Maya bhutam characharam. Vaishnavis. Yachapi sarvabhutanam Bijam tad aham Arjuna Mattat asti vinayatsa Maya bhutam characharam. Okay, I'll read the word for word for that particular verse. Yet, whatever. Cha, also. Api, maybe. Sarvabhutanam, of all creations. Bijam, seed. Tat, that. Aham, I am. Arjuna, O Arjuna. Na, not. Tat, that. Asti, there is. Vina, without. Yet, which. Syat, exists. Maya, me. Bhutam, created being. Characharam, moving and non-moving. So the translation once again, furthermore, O Arjuna, I am the generating seed of all existences. There is no being moving or non-moving that can exist without me. So these 4 verses are a continuation of Krishna's response to a request by Arjuna to figure out or hear how he might... You can't hear me? It sounds so loud to me.
Well, you can hear you, but we can't.
You can't hear me? Okay, anyway, whatever. It's supposed to be between my chin and my upper lip. My lower lip, right? Wasn't that the instruction? Okay, So Arjuna, hearing the Chaturshloki Gita, he heard that the devotees, they enlighten and enliven one another by talking about Krishna, by thinking about him, and absorbing themselves in him. And so he asked Krishna, well, how can I do that? And Krishna started to give him his vibhutis, or his opulences. Baladev Vijabhushan, in his commentary on these verses, he said that these opulences in particular are opulences which demonstrate Krishna's power, or Krishna's ability to control things. So in these particular verses, there's different types of opulences that are mentioned. The first one, the gambling of cheats, the splendor of the splendor, I am victory, I am adventure, and I am the strength of the strong. Krishna is talking about different qualities or things that happen in life, and he is the thing that makes that happen, the essence of that activity, and by him being involved in that activity in a certain way, he allows that or makes that activity happen. So someone may try to cheat, but he says specifically that he's gambling of the cheater, and in the commentaries they mention that he's specifically the dice game. Now, if we remember a little bit back in the Mahabharata, Yudhisthira lost everything at the game of dice. And partially the reason that they're in this situation on the Battle of Kurukshetra, where this conversation is taking place, is because of a gambling match, and someone who is cheating, and someone who lost because of cheating. And so, in a way, what Krishna is telling Arjuna is that I'm responsible. I was responsible for that. So this is my plan. This was something that I arranged for. And what's happening now is no accident. It was my fault. I did it. So I'm the gambling of the cheats. And of the splendid, I'm splendory. And victory, the commentators, they say that victory, in this sense, means that when something goes right, Krishna is the reason it goes right. Krishna is the plan that makes something victorious. So if we have a good plan in this battle of Kurukshetra, then it will be by Krishna's grace, just like by Krishna's grace the gambling took place, you were cheated out of your kingdom, and ultimately it led to this war. Also the victory will be I'll be the cause of that. I'll be the reason that you're victorious. And I'm also the strength of the strong, which was another concern, right? I'm Arjuna feeling somewhat concerned who would win, who was stronger, who was better, but I'm the strength of the strong. So ultimately, he who is the strongest will be empowered by the Supreme Lord Krishna, by me. Of the descendants of Vrishni, I'm Vasudeva, and there's some interesting discussions about what this means. Maybe some commentators say it means Balaram, some commentators say it means Vishnu, but it can't mean Krishna as the son of Vasudeva, because Krishna wouldn't call himself one of his babhutis. And of the Pandavas, and I am Arjuna. And there's some mention that, of course, Arjuna is a Shaktavesha avatar. So in that sense, he's Krishna directly. But in another sense, there's Arjuna who's hearing Krishna listing all these wonderful things and wondering, oh, he's talking about the Pandavas. I wonder which one of us is the best. And Krishna says, it's you, Arjuna. You're the best. So, and of the sages, I'm Vyas, and among great thinkers, Ushana. Ushana is Sukracharya, who's the spiritual master of the demons, but he was very cunning and very wise. And the next one, among means of suppressing lawlessness, I'm punishment. And of those who seek victory, I am morality. So the thing that wins over everything is doing the right thing. In which case, Arjuna and the Pandavas were the persons who did the right thing. Other people did the wrong thing. And so the ultimate victory will be theirs because they did the right thing. Of secret things, I am silence, and of the wise, I am wisdom. So being able to ascertain what is the relationship of the soul to the Supreme Lord and to the material energy, and who is the controller of both, that is to be considered wisdom, and that knowledge comes from Krishna. He says in the 15, I'm the wisdom that comes from the Vedic knowledge. And of secret things, silence, the ability to keep a secret, or the ability to just speak about Krishna, which is also a definition of silence, is the Supreme Lord. Furthermore, O Arjuna, I am the generating seed of all existence, and ultimately nothing exists without him. So that's the kind of the face value of these verses. But if you look at what's happening here with Arjuna, what you see is Arjuna is making an effort to get enough knowledge, enough understanding of Krishna's greatness to be able to see him everywhere. He sees that being able to see Krishna everywhere is the crux of his ability to ultimately attain pure devotional service. That we have to be able to come to the point where in all circumstances we can see Krishna everywhere. The pure devotee sees Krishna everywhere. Prabhupada said he never felt like he was alone, even for a moment. He was always with his spiritual master. He was always with the Supreme Lord. And he was there because he was able to see Krishna everywhere. So we, as devotees of Krishna, we also have to be able to see Krishna everywhere. And as Krishna says in these verses a little bit later, he says, but what use of there is this tiny bit of my vibhutis? This is just a few of them. I'm giving you a list that has to fit in a book. You know, the book will become too big because my vibhutis, my opulences, they're unlimited. And so we can understand from that we can also find vibhutis or opulences that may be relevant in our lives, ways that we can see Krishna in our lives that will allow us to ultimately remember him and keep him in the forefront of our consciousness throughout whatever we find ourselves in. And we find ourselves in all kinds of things, right? And as life progresses, we'll find ourselves in other things that we didn't even know we were going to find ourselves in, but we don't know what they are, but Krishna will arrange them. And he'll arrange them for our benefit. I'm giving Bhagavatam class tomorrow morning, so I was studying for the class, and one of the things that I was reading in the Chaitanya Charitamrita is that Krishna is always testing his devotees. And in testing his devotees, the devotees are trying to prove to Krishna that no matter what happens, they're going to serve him. And Krishna is always trying to put the devotees into more difficult situations to see if, in fact, they can do that. And there's a competition going on between Krishna and his devotees to see who's going to win. Prabhupada calls it a competition that the Lord is testing and the pure devotee is determined to win. The pure devotee is determined to remember Krishna in whatever circumstance he can throw. And we see with Kunti Devi that she, even in most difficult situations, she was able to see Krishna in those difficulties. That she actually prayed for difficulties because the difficulties made her want Krishna more, made her remember Krishna more. When things were okay, she said, I'll forget you. I might forget you. Everything will be fine, and then you're going away. And I would much rather than be turbulent and you stay, because I need you in my life. I need to remember you all the time, because remembrance of you is the crux of my spiritual life. It's the crux of my ability to make spiritual advancement and to go back to Godhead. I have to remember you. And also, Krishna confirmed that earlier in this chapter, that the devotees, they remember him, and that's where their pleasure comes from. Their pleasure doesn't come from anywhere else. It comes from remembering him. And not only remembering him, but inspiring and enlivening other people to remember him. Hare Krishna. So we're trying to we're trying to come to that point where we can find in our own lives a constant remembrance of Krishna, constant remembrance of Krishna. And anything that takes us away from that remembrance should be turned around so that it reminds us of Krishna, or it should be removed from our lives if it takes us away from Krishna. If there's things or people that agitate our mind so that our mind doesn't remember Krishna, we can't fix our mind on Krishna, then we have to do something about that. We have to rearrange our lives somehow or other so that we can remember Krishna 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And Prabhupada tried to give us a program for doing that. But even though he tried very hard to give us a program for doing that, somehow we often find different ways to avoid doing those things. And Maya is constantly trying to offer us different opportunities to forget Krishna, right? We have wonderful things like phones and Facebook and so many things that to help us forget Krishna, and can take our time away so that we don't know where it went. All of a sudden it's gone and we don't know where it went. We sit down for 5 minutes, it turns out to be 5 hours, and we can't remember Krishna during that time. We're chanting. I was listening to a recording of Hanuman Prashak Swami, and he was speaking about how the common way of chanting japa is to chant japa with the right hand and scroll with the left. So, and he was advising that that's not the best program to scroll with the left while chanting with the right. Because chanting takes place with more than the right hand. It requires the consciousness. It requires our meditation. And our meditation is difficult. It's difficult enough to keep it because the mind is very difficult to control. It wanders, it goes here and there. And as it travels, it takes us to far out places. The mind travels like Manaratena. We're going to read about that tomorrow. So Manaratena means the chariot of the mind. It takes us anywhere at the speed of light, the speed of the mind, which is even faster than light. We can go anywhere. So we have to find ways to remember Krishna. And this is what Arjuna is asking of Krishna. Give me ways. So we don't necessarily have Krishna sitting beside us on the chariot, giving us specific ways to see Krishna. But we have to be able to see Krishna, because Krishna has to be in the forefront of our mind at every moment. So we have to look. We have to look and find ways to see Krishna. And we have to see Krishna even when he handles us roughly. Even when he handles us roughly. Sometimes we actually can see Krishna better that way. If we actually look with eyes that want to see Krishna. Instead of asking Krishna to change our circumstance, we can see that Krishna has put us in a specific circumstance to change us. And if we can accept that Krishna is putting us in circumstances to change us, to mold us, to shape us into the living entities that are able to remember him all the time and that are qualified for going back to Godhead, then we can see Krishna's hand even in the reverses in our lives. And what apparently is a reverse in our life might turn out to be a blessing. And this is, again, what Kunti Devi saw. Kunti Devi saw that the reverses in her life were actually a momentum or to help her remember Krishna. Dhruva Maharaj, he was in a difficult situation. He got kicked off his father's lap by his mother's other wife or co-wife. And he became very angry. But that angry situation and that getting kicked off his father's lap sent him to the forest. His mother gave him the advice, just go to the forest. He said, I want a kingdom better than my father, better than my grandfather. He was 5 years old, so he could throw a tantrum. He said, I want to go and I want to get a kingdom. I want to know where to go to get a kingdom. And she said, well, the only one that could take care of that would be Krishna. And I don't know where you can find him, but I know the sages, they go to the forest. And that's where they find him. So this 5-year-old boy, he went to the forest. And he was so determined to find Krishna that he actually inspired Krishna to inspire Narada Muni to come and give him some instruction. Now the first instruction he gave Dhruva was, go home. You're too young. What are you doing out here? Lions and tigers and bears, oh my. What are you going to accomplish in this situation? But Dhruva was so determined, he said, listen, if you have something to tell me to achieve my goal, then tell me. And if you don't, maybe you should go talk to somebody else. So Narada Muni gave him some advice, and he began to chant and meditate on the sound of Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. In 6 months, he achieved spiritual perfection, which is relatively quickly. So we saw it was a reverse at the beginning. He was an abused child. He got kicked off his father's lap. It wasn't a very auspicious event. But that event turned his life around. And he went to the forest. That wasn't very auspicious either. It's scary out in the forest for a 5-year-old boy. But still, it turned out to be a pivotal moment in his life. He met Narada. And he took up Narada's instruction very seriously. And because he did that, he was able to achieve spiritual perfection. And material perfection, both. He got everything material that he didn't even want anymore, and he got everything spiritual that he wanted as well. So looks like a reverse, but turns out to be a benediction. And in so many different situations we see that. With Chitraketu, right? We see the same thing. Chitraketu had a material desire. He wanted a child. He tried in so many ways. He had 1 million, 10 million wives. That's enough to exhaust anybody. So he had 10 million wives, and life was still not good enough because he didn't have a child. And so Angira Muni, seeing that pathetic situation, gave him a child, and then he said to him, this child is going to be the source of your misery and the source of your pleasure. But the source of his pleasure was only very brief, a couple of days. And the source of misery came right away. And one would think, what a horrible thing. So much loss. His child died at such a young age. But for Chichiketu, it turned out to be a turning point. It broke his attachment to the material world. By the advice of Angira and this learning situation that Angira created, Chichiketu was able to overcome an obstacle which he had for a long time. It takes a long time to marry 10 million wives. So he had this problem for a long time that he wanted a child, and he was so obsessed with that that he couldn't think of anything else. So Angira Muni, in his infinite mercy, crafted a situation which appeared to be reverse, but was actually a benediction. We look at Bilva Mangal Thakur. Again, we see somebody who was pretty strangely attached to a prostitute. Very, very crazy, his attachment. And he went through so many horrible things, finally came to the prostitute. Prostitute said, you should have so much attraction for Krishna as you have for me. And then he went off and he tried to perfect his life. But again and again, his eyes were attracted to material things. So he poked out his eyes. Now, that's not a very good advertisement for Krishna consciousness. If you tell that to many people, that, you know, if your eyes get in the way, just poke them out. It'll help you remember Krishna. But in his situation, that apparent, very, very traumatizing, desperate, one would say, move, again, gave him the opportunity to keep or develop the determination that he needed to go back to Godhead. And he was able to see Krishna without eyes. He had no vision materially, but he had spiritual vision, that he was able to communicate directly with Krishna and ultimately to see Krishna face to face. So again and again, throughout the Bhagavatam and throughout many books, Giriraj Maharaj was telling the story of Mukunda the other day, how he heard that he would never see Krishna again, or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again, and then he heard that he would see him in millions of births or 10 million births, and he thought, wow, only 10 million births, that's great, finally. So if we have the vision to be able to see what ordinarily appears to be negative as Krishna's hand in our life, and we try to understand that it's Krishna controlling the material situation for our benefit, to teach us a lesson, then we can make very rapid spiritual advancement. Krishna is very, very powerful. Nothing happens without his sanction. He's the overseer and permitter of everything that goes on in the material world. And so if we understand that, then we'll understand that nothing happens without his will. And especially when somebody is trying to be his devotee, then it's explained in the scripture that for a devotee, Krishna is intimately involved in his life. He's intimately involved in crafting what happens to him. And so the spiritual master also. The spiritual master does things to help the disciple make spiritual advancement, and they might seem problematic. They may seem strange to the disciple. Why my spiritual master is putting me in this difficult situation? But ultimately, if you look with 20/20 hindsight, you'll be able to understand how Krishna was arranging your life so that you could make rapid spiritual advancement, so that your life would take a quick turn and you would be able to get to the spiritual awareness you need in a quicker way. Sometimes in my classes, we do something called a mercy map. And that mercy map, we create a picture of things that happen to us over some period of time, usually within the last 10 years, and try to see how Krishna brought us to where we are. By doing things sometimes that appear to be reverses in our lives. Sometimes someone comes to Vrindavan or Mayapur to study in the VIHE or the MI because they lost their job. When they lost their job, then they didn't have anything to do. They couldn't go when they had a job because they had to go to work every day. But then they lost their job and they were thinking, well, what am I going to do now? I have a break, so let me go to Mayapur and study. So what appears to be a reverse, lost your job, turns out to be a benediction. You get to come to the Dham and study. Or so many different things, changes in our lives that move us to where Krishna wants us to be, to allow us to learn the lessons that we need to learn. And if we as devotees are willing to allow Krishna to move us that way, and we don't fight him, because if we fight him, then Krishna will let go. Krishna will, if we want to be in control, Krishna will let us play controller and mess things up really well. But if we could get out of the way and let Krishna control, then Krishna will direct us exactly where we need to go in order to make spiritual advancement. And more so for the willing observer. Krishna will do it, maybe even if we're not willing, but it will be more difficult. But if we're willing, then the activity will flow and go easily. We'll make advancement much more easily. So we see again and again, I was hearing with Sanatana Goswami, stories of Sanatana Goswami, that he had a disease where his body was oozing sores. And Lord Chaitanya would embrace him and he would feel horrible, feeling that embrace, because he was thinking, oh, Lord Chaitanya, he's touching me and I'm so contaminated, so horrible. But then as it became more and more into the Leela, the understanding came that Krishna actually, Lord Chaitanya actually arranged for that situation for Sanatana Goswami. It was a test for Sanatana Goswami. And Sanatana Goswami passed that test. He passed that test so much that finally Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced him and all his sores went away, all his difficulty went away, because the test had been passed. So Krishna is constantly inspiring us and enlivening us to come closer to him, to move towards him. And we need to learn to see that with gratitude, even though materially speaking it may not seem like something to be have gratitude for. So in this situation, Arjuna, he's looking at, now he'll be able to look at the material world, and you'll see in the next chapter he's going to see something else that's going to help him even more understand Krishna's greatness and show him what he wants to see in terms of the future of the battle. So he's in an expanding situation in this these chapters of Bhagavad Gita, where his consciousness is becoming more and more aware of the power and the greatness of Krishna. First he sees him here, and then he'll see the universal form. In the 15th chapter he'll hear how he can't even digest food or anything without the sun. Nothing grows, nothing has any taste without Krishna. He's the essence, the thing which makes everything function well is coming from Krishna. So more and more the power of Krishna is being revealed to him. And to us also, if we look around with care, we'll see that Krishna is there in many, many wonderful ways in our lives. And if we get in touch with those things, if we see those things as Krishna's hand in our lives and Krishna's hand in the world, then we won't become so disturbed. Sometimes now in society, there's a very low level of trust. Everybody lives in fear all the time, and fear is very much inspired by the government, by the newspaper, by your telephone, by everything you look at practically is giving you some reason to be scared, some reason to be afraid of terrorism, or to be afraid of the food you eat, or the water you drink, or the air you breathe. Everything is somehow contaminated, poisonous, killing you, causing cancer. Somebody will put up one day that, you know, this is a cure for cancer, and the next day they'll say it's actually there's something wrong with it and it causes cancer or causes another disease, so you won't die of cancer, you'll die of something else. And so there's a very, very high level of fear, and the tendency is that we get diverted and we try to deal with these individual items that are causing us disturbance. We think we're going to work on fixing the food. We're going to get in campaign, no GMOs, right? And we're going to fix the food, or we're going to fix the water. We're going to make the water pure. We're going to clean up this place or that place, or we're going to ask everybody to have peace, be nice to each other. We're going to try to eliminate war. But these things are not going to be eliminated because they're all part of Krishna's plan. They're already talked about in the 12th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. So these things are part of what the Supreme Lord is arranging. And he's arranging it for us not to fix it, but to get out of here. Right? To be inspired to think that this place is no place for a gentleman. This is, or a gentlewoman. This is some place where everything is temporary and full of misery. And we should get out of here. So our fear should lead us to take shelter of Krishna, not lead us to taking shelter of other temporary material things, to try to make the material world a place where we can be comfortable, because we can't be comfortable here. Whatever thing we do to make it more comfortable will only create more suffering. We thought that when we created the car, it would make things easier, but it didn't really work. And so we have honking and so much traffic and accidents and people killing each other and, you know, dying on the road, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we thought when we created the phone that life would be much easier, right? Now we can't live without a phone. If you lose your phone, it's like you lost your brain. And all your friends are in your phone. What will happen to me? So these things, we brought them in our lives to make things better, but as they develop, they make our quality of life worse. They take us away from the goal of life. They make life more complicated. And even we look at them and we think, well, wait a minute, it's helping me. It's helping me so much in my service. But when you think about it deeply, you'll find that it's distracting. It's very, very distracting. And somehow or other, the sages managed to do it without cell phones and without all these things. They wrote hundreds of books without a word processor. Prabhupada wrote all his books without a word processor. Somehow or other, he didn't have a computer. So we have these things, we can use them in Krishna's service, but we have to be so careful because every one of them has an upside and a downside. And this is Krishna's arrangement. Krishna's arrangement is that for every step forward in the material world, there's at least one step backwards. There's at least one misery that's coming.
Oh, I said
20.
Every
advantage, 20 disadvantages. Thank you. So for every, I was being generous, I guess. So for every advantage, 20 disadvantages, and yet we still think that it's going to all, we're going to figure it out. It's going to work okay. We're going to make it better. We're not going to make it better. Don't desire to stay here. Don't desire to become comfortable here, because you're not going to become comfortable here. The idea is to want to get out of here. That's why Krishna arranges it this way, so that those people who are wise enough to see his hand in everything will understand that he's trying to pull us out of here. He's trying to help us, direct us, turn us towards the ultimate goal of going back to Krishna again. Not to get entangled here, not to get a nicer cage to be entrapped in. So Krishna's opulences, Krishna's vibhutis, they come in forms like tsunamis and other big things that we see. We realize how powerless we are. We realize how, no matter how much of a plan we make, because one thing I was thinking about victory, Krishna says he's victory. But in every war, there's somebody who loses and someone who wins. And both people are praying to win. But victory only comes to one side. And sometimes it doesn't even do that, right? In the Vietnam War, no one won. Everyone loses. We see that Krishna's will be done. Whatever Krishna's will is, that will be victory. If we can see that whatever Krishna wants is what's going to happen, that will be our victory. And that will be the real victory, is that Krishna's will be done. Say that 10 times fast. So each of us has the obligation in our own lives, in our own situations, which are each unique, even though it seems so similar, still each of our lives is a little bit unique. And we have the duty, the responsibility as devotees of Krishna to see Krishna everywhere, somehow or other, to find a way to put Krishna's remembrance into our lives, and enable ourselves to remember that Krishna is taking care of us, that Krishna is walking with us through each thing, and if we take shelter of him, he will guide us and he will protect us through every event. And this is what's happening here, that Krishna is giving Arjuna a vision to be able to see him everywhere. He'll continue to do that on into the Bhagavad Gita in chapter after chapter. He'll give him the ability to see him in so many different ways. And where is Arjuna? Arjuna is on a battlefield, soon to be fighting his relatives, and carnage everywhere. But still, in that situation, Krishna is saying to him, you fight and you think of me. So how difficult is that? We think, how can I think of Krishna? I don't have good association. How can I think of Krishna, my temple president? He's not such a nice guy. How can I think? But we're very well situated in most cases. We're in the association of devotees. For all those of us here, we're in Vrindavan Dham. Radhe Shyam are here, Krishna Balaram are here, Srila Prabhupada is everywhere. And we're in the association of devotees, wonderful devotees, who are trying to remember Krishna at every moment and be Krishna conscious, and are willing, if we encourage them to, they're willing to help us be Krishna conscious also. And they're enthusiastic for us to help them be Krishna conscious. That's what everybody wants. Everybody wants good association, but everybody has to be good association for everybody to get good association. So we're in a glorious situation for remembering Krishna at every moment. We just have to find the way and the means to focus our minds and our senses and be able to see Krishna in all his opulence everywhere we look. And that way we'll be able to be successful in this process of going back to Godhead and becoming Krishna conscious. So I'll stop there, and if there's any questions, we have 8 minutes for questions. If anyone has any questions, I'll try to answer. Hare Krishna. Yes?
Can we use a microphone?
We have it. It's right out there.
When there are sudden changes in our life, things like big bomb just drop on us and turn our life upside down, I would say that in my case, the resistance is quite strong. So how do we deal with this? And the thing that the change is going to happen, how much we fight it, we're going to be the loser.
Yeah,
so how do we deal with this?
Well, the realization comes after a while that the more you fight, the more you suffer. Actually, 99, maybe even 100% of our suffering takes place because Krishna has a plan and we have another plan. And we try to make our plan succeed and Krishna's plan not succeed, which is impossible to do. And so therefore, we suffer. We suffer trying to put our situation forward when Krishna has a different desire. So the more that we can understand that Krishna is taking care of us. Actually, surrender, the ability to surrender is the crux or the central focus of the entire process of Krishna consciousness. Having faith that Krishna is there and that we can surrender to him is the essence of pure devotional service. That we don't have to worry about anything, that Krishna will take care of everything. All we have to do is worry about Krishna. Worry about Krishna's happiness. He'll take care of everything else. So if we think that we can manipulate the material energy and we try to do it in a different way than Krishna's plan, then we struggle, then we suffer. And it's a sign of a lack of faith, a lack of surrender, because we're not believing that Krishna will take care of us, that Krishna has our welfare in mind. We're thinking this person or that situation, but all those situations are put in place in our life by Krishna. He arranges everything for our welfare. And if we can accept that and see the benefit in that, well, then we can become peaceful. We can become peaceful when we can fall into Krishna's arms. When we can relax knowing that Krishna will take care of us, then we become peaceful. And to the degree that we're afraid that Krishna won't take care of us or that the situation is out of his control, to that extent we become fearful because we think it's under my control and ultimately I'm helpless. So the idea of turning it over to Krishna and allowing him to do his will and accepting that his will is for my benefit is what we have to strive for. The more we can achieve that, the more peaceful we become. Yes?
There's another factor. And sometimes these situations, come right up into your face, and then you realize that actually you have to accept what's good for your devotional life and reject what's not good for your devotional life. So sometimes that's a sign too, so that then when you reject what's not good for your life, then the struggling ends also. Well, for a while. Until the next test.
Well, each difficulty in our spiritual life gives us an opportunity to grow, to get stronger. It's like working out in a gym. When you work out in a gym or you do yoga, whatever, the beginning exercises, they stretch us and they hurt. They're painful. But ultimately we get stronger, and then they lead us to a more healthy situation, to stronger situation. So every time Krishna gives us an opportunity where we have to look at the situation and we have to analyze what is good for my Krishna consciousness, what isn't good for my Krishna consciousness, which direction do I have to go in, what do I have to give up. Sometimes you think you don't have anything left, and then Krishna says, you have something left, you have to give that up too. You're still holding on, let that go also. So we have to come to the point where we're willing to accept that, and we're able to make the analysis. Actually, in the 16th chapter of Divine and Demoniac Natures, Arjuna starts to hear of the demoniac qualities, and he thinks, oh, that sounds just like me sometimes. So Krishna tells him, he says, don't worry, Arjuna, you're divine. And Prabhupada, in that purport, he says, the reason Arjuna is divine is because he's trying to analyze what is the right thing to do and what is the wrong thing to do. He's trying to look at it through a Krishna conscious perspective and understand what is the best course of action. And that ability to do that, to think about it and make a good choice based on what is best for my Krishna consciousness, not what feels good to me, but what's best for my Krishna consciousness, that's what determines the divinity. And so we want to be divine. We want to be devotees of Krishna. That means we have to analyze the situation and see, what is Krishna teaching me in this lesson? What am I supposed to learn here? And what should I do to maximize my ability to render service to Krishna in this situation? We used to say that Prabhupada only yelled at those people that were very advanced. Most advanced. He would yell at his most advanced devotees. So Krishna gives a hard time mostly to his advanced devotees. You see in the scripture, in the Bhagavatam, how so many wonderful devotees, they go through a lot of problems, but they always come out victorious. Because their greatness is shown by how they can take shelter of Krishna in difficulty. You don't look convinced. Hare Krishna. Yes. Go ahead. Hare Krishna.
How can I substitute the word Krishna for the word Prabhupada without becoming Sahajya? Like I know when Prabhupada was asked one time, have you seen Krishna? He answered once, I don't know Krishna, I only know my Guru Maharaj, and that's enough for me. But then there's the philosophical deviation of taking the spiritual master to be the Supreme Personality. So how can we have this fixation on Guru without coming Sahajya?
Well, Guru, Prabhupada especially, any guru, bona fide guru, will take us to Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, you look at the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. We were known as the Hare Krishnas. We were never known as the Prabhupada anything. Prabhupada, to us, was the center, but in his presentation of Krishna consciousness, Krishna was always the center. Every book, everything, it had his name on it, but it also had Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam, the beautiful story of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavad Gita, the talk of Krishna, the song of the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada put Krishna in the center. You can't remember Prabhupada really without remembering Krishna, because Prabhupada was asking us to remember Krishna at every moment. If you read Prabhupada's books, every other word is Krishna. And every other instruction is remember Krishna, remember Krishna, remember Krishna. And the spiritual master, Prabhupada, is always bringing us to Krishna. So it's not possible to really remember Krishna. You could say the word Prabhupada, but you can't really know Srila Prabhupada without him bringing you to Krishna. Everything he did, everything he said, every arrangement he made was always to put Krishna in the center. You see the deities, big Krishna Balaram, big Gaurnitai, big Radhesham, Lalita Vishaka, little Prabhupada. And you know, of course, Prabhupada, we're ever grateful for everything he did, because Prabhupada is our link to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in reality, you cannot know Srila Prabhupada without knowing Krishna. Prabhupada wouldn't let us. Everything he gave us links us to Krishna. Is that okay? Anybody else? He had his hand.
Nice class, Mataji. Just now we are discussing before we in fear, instead of taking shelter of Krishna, sometimes we are taking shelter of wrong side. That particular woman, if I got the association of devotees, I will be in the mode of goodness, I can think. If I don't think I am in the mode of passion or ignorance, I have the chance of taking the wrong decision. That how to maintain, how can I overcome that?
Well, you gave the answer yourself, because having good association, taking good advice, and arranging our lives so that we stay as closely connected to the mode of goodness as possible. Now, there are many things in our lives which can be adjusted. Sometimes when I teach about the modes of material nature, I talk about like how it's kind of like when you look at the mixer on a microphone, you have, you know, treble and bass and all the different knobs that you adjust, volume, so many things. So there's many things that we can adjust in our lives which will bring in ignorance, which will bring in passion, which will bring in goodness. And it's our responsibility to arrange our lives so that we have as much goodness in the mix as we possibly can. So the time of day we do things, what we eat, who cooks the food we eat, you know, where we eat, with whom we associate, where we go, where we take ourselves, what we allow in our ears, what we allow in our eyes. These things all affect our consciousness. They bring in ignorance, they bring in passion, and they bring in goodness, right? So we want to adjust our lives as much as possible so that goodness is there. And what to speak of goodness, how about Sudasattva? Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing Bhagavad Gita, associating with persons who are talking about Krishna and enlivening one another by talking about him and reminding each other of him. So these things take us even above the mode of goodness. And when we do those things in situations which are not threatening, we become stronger so that when we have a threatening situation, we can overcome it, we can walk through it because we're strong. When we're in a difficult situation, it's a hard time to start doing emergency medical care, right? It's like Ayurveda. Some people say, you know, I have a very bad disease, I'm going to start doing Ayurveda. When you have a very bad disease, that's not the time to start doing Ayurveda. It's not emergency medical care. So better that you live your life properly, you eat properly, you follow a sattvic diet, and you build yourself up so that disease doesn't come. Because when disease comes, that's not the time. That makes it much harder to fight. But if you build yourself up, then when either disease doesn't come or when it does come, you're stronger. And so it doesn't affect you as severely. So if we can surround ourselves in the mode of goodness and with good association, good mentorship, so that we know who to go to in an emergency. We have emergency numbers, 911, you know, so we know how to call, who to call, we know who to approach, we know somebody who knows us, who can give us good advice, and whom I will listen to. We eat in the mode of goodness, we live in the mode of goodness, so then when challenges come, we're already acclimated to function in those higher modes, and it's much easier for us to overcome difficulties. If we live in passion, then passion will be our immediate reaction. As soon as something happens, we'll be ready to fight, you know. And what to speak of ignorance, we'll just be ready to go to sleep or get intoxicated, right? Something gets too intense, we just drop out. That's because we train ourselves to take shelter of various modes of nature. Is that okay? Anybody else? Is someone there? I can't. Oh, okay.
I think also being kind to each and every person is also really important. To be in the mode of goodness. Not only the people who are in high position. And if we're only kind to the people who are in high position, then we're making a pretense. We have to be kind to even the karmis who aren't devotees. That's really the true sign of goodness.
What does kind mean?
To be humble, or like give respect to even the people who are not devotees, or to every person in general.
Prabhupada defined kindness as giving somebody assistance in their path back to Godhead. So kindness could mean giving a simply wonderful, right? Prabhupada said, if you give this simply wonderful, then they will become simply wonderful. So kindness means helping somebody, telling them about spiritual life, or giving them some association that will elevate them. If I go and get drunk with somebody, that's not being kind. I mean, I may be very nice to them, and we may be good friends, put our arms around each other, walk down the street in a rather odd path, but that's not being nice to people. So being nice to people has to be soul to soul.
Yeah. And also another thing I was thinking about, that we need to, this I learned from the Nectar of Instruction, always keep Vacho Vegam and Grow the Vegam, keeping a control of the urges of the mind, over the urges of the tongue, over the urges of the speech, over the urges of anger, over the urges of the stomach, and over the urges of the genitals. If we can't keep a control over these urges, then these things actually control us instead.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Vacho Vegam Manasakro Vegam. Anybody else? Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Glory to Srila Prabhupada.